All right, here we are. It's Common Sense Ohio, where we are bringing you our common sense take on all sorts of news, Ohio, and spilling over into the national and international front. CommonSenseOhioShow.com is where you can check us out. The date today, July 19, 2024. July 19, 2024. Again, the year flying by at rapid pace. Those who run a business, we are well into the second quarter, or third quarter, rather, and looking at our financial outlook, and it won't be long before you're paying estimates again, and you're figuring out what your tax bill for 2024 will be. And if you're thinking, damn, I don't feel like dealing with that, I don't know what to do, I have no idea how much I'm going to owe, did I withhold enough, did I save enough, do I have that tax savings account set aside like I should? All those questions and much, much more can be answered by Harper Plus Accounting, our sponsor. And I strongly suggest now, before the real throes of tax season hit, and a lot of people, Norm, probably have punted their tax return to September, or is it October? What's the extension? First one, September.
Well, I think
the corporate would be September, right?
Business is August 15th.
I think. Yeah, you punt the business, and then you go to September for. So look, there are legitimate reasons to push your tax return off. I've had to do it before because I'm waiting on various documents or an event that I don't want to have to amend my return or something like that. But generally speaking, unless something like that happens with Harper Plus, that doesn't happen to me. My return is filed on time, and it's a good feeling. So look, I'm in the process of making some bank transactions, and my banker asked me if I have my 2023 tax returns done yet, and I was like, well,
in fact,
yes,
I do.
Of course I did. As of April 15,
in fact,
they were done. In fact, I think before that. So,
and then a funny question that obviously he wouldn't ask it if he hadn't run into a lot of people. Right.
His typical, customer or client has punted it.
Yeah.
And, there's other reasons out there. So I guess in the news, if we're going to talk about some news, it would be the ERC, the Earned Employee Retention Credit that businesses could apply for. And a lot of those claims are still outstanding. So those things can modify old tax returns. But anyway, Harper Plus Accounting sponsoring commonsenseohioshow.com. Now, there's a couple other things you should be aware of. You can also support us if you've got a business and you want us to discuss your business here locally. We work with some local businesses and behind the scenes, and we'd be happy to get you on the show, talk about your business, talk about what you do, and hopefully make your outstanding business stand out, because here at Common Sense Ohio, we have millions of listeners, and millions of local listeners will hopefully patronize your business. Mm-hmm. The other new sponsor, Norm, you don't know about this yet.
Bring it.
Another podcast, Lawyer Talk. Yours truly.
Can you imagine?
I've had LawyerTalkShow.com for years now.
Yeah.
Sure. I don't know how many episodes we got in the tank there.
Brad, over 350.
350 plus episodes.
Oh, yeah.
And, because we've been doing Common Sense Ohio Show, I have sort of taken my foot off the gas pedal, because I've had to run the law firm upstairs. I've had to do this show. I've had other things. But I've decided that backed by popular demand, Lawyer Talk is. And so we'll be mentioning that. And these will run in tandem. A lot of the clips that we do here will spill over and vice versa.
Oh, that's great.
And so we will have some of the legal breakdowns will be, we'll start posting on the Common Sense Ohio website and vice versa. So
nice.
The Q&A dropping on Monday is good.
Yeah, we have a good Q&A.
I like that one. That's a good one.
We're broken down in like 4 or 5 different, or three to 5 different types of categories. We've got Q&A, which is question and answer. And those who know, you guys were on the Blitz show with us. That was like the early.
Yeah. I love those shows.
Yeah, those were fun. So legal advice. So we're gonna get back to that, not with the Blitz, but on our own.
And in fact, can I make a suggestion before I forget?
Yeah.
So do you remember you had a couple of nurses, I think in particular, calling in during COVID?
Yep.
Who were asking you at the time, and of course this was all evolving, what were their options if they didn't want to get vaxxed?
If they didn't get the jab.
Right.
Yeah.
So there has been some, I think one was decided 2-3 weeks ago by the Supreme Court that a nurse had standing. In fact, it was a doctor. A doctor had standing to sue for lost wages because she chose, I think she was Blue Cross Blue Shield, she chose not to get vaxxed, was terminated, and man, she's going for payback.
Yeah,
So
there's a bunch of those around the
if
country.
you could dig out her question and maybe update that nurse on Lawyer Talk, that would be outstanding.
Yeah, we could go back and dust some of those off and follow up.
Because we didn't know.
We didn't
right?
know at the time.
We didn't know at the time.
I had a hunch where this was going. But the problem with those kind of things is they never happen quickly enough. And
No.
as Jay, the exchequer, our local geologist and scientist, he would get so distraught over this stuff. And I said, look, give the legal system time. And then within 2 years now, 3-4 years, we've got the Chevron doctrine being withdrawn. We've got lots of strike downs out of the U.S. Supreme Court, rightfully so. And I saw recently a federal district court put the kibosh on the latest safe harbor student loan nonsense out of the Biden administration. So,
the Eighth Circuit.
Yeah, I think the Eighth Circuit.
Out of St. Louis. Yep.
The courts move at a slow pace, and that's a good thing. It could be, you don't want knee-jerk reactions. You don't want political decisions. You want legal decisions, and it just takes time. And that's the unfortunate thing. So people like those nurses who didn't want to get the jab and lost their jobs, or they got the jab and maybe got sick from, who knows what the consequences were. But at any rate, the Lawyer Talk is back, and it's going to be back with a vengeance. We're going to be dealing with Q&A. We're going to do a lot of breakdowns on legal issues going on throughout the country. Some of the U.S. Supreme Court cases that have been dropped, I'll do the legal breakdowns. Got a couple other neat things in store, talking about maybe some true crime.
Nice.
Talking about cases pending in Anywhere County, Ohio.
Nice.
Or elsewhere. So anyway, stay tuned for that. I guess we should mention, guys, one of the things that we did on Lawyer Talk. So that was sort of like towards the end of Lawyer Talk, we had this crossover with Common Sense Ohio. Mm-hmm. And we were all at the table and we thought, why don't we create Common Sense Ohio? Before that happened, though, we had JD Vance on. And we did a nice interview with JD Vance as he was running for the Senate seat that he later won.
Due to us.
Probably because of our publicity.
More than likely. And then I was not part of that episode, so that probably helped even more.
Right. So old JD is back, and now he's emerged as the vice presidential candidate under Trump. And those who watched the RNC, the Republican National Convention this week, know that he gave a pretty compelling speech. I disagree almost with a lot of what he had to say economically on how it was going to fix. So, how to fix the economic structure and what was causing the economic problems. But, in my interview with him, in our interview, Norm, we pushed back on him a little bit about that too. So he just has a little bit different philosophy. Still a great vice presidential candidate. It is refreshing to have a political candidate who can communicate intelligently.
Right.
Say what you want about JD Vance, but the man is sharp as a razor.
Yeah, yes, he is. I look forward to the Harris-Vance debate, if there is one.
I think Harris is going to be the presidential candidate.
Wow.
I think.
Yeah.
I think. The two options are going to be open convention for the Dems, or she's going to be the candidate. I think I don't know. I listened to Larry Elder give an interview yesterday about this, and people don't know. People who, again, Ohio man, or at least had a radio show up in Cleveland. There was working at a law firm, started doing commentary on a radio show in Cleveland, and ended up with his own national radio show, ran for governor out in California and president even.
Yeah.
But he said it would be very, very problematic for the Dems if they did not run Kamala Harris, because the black women, the black vote would be upset by that. And what are they going to do? Put a white woman in, or a white
Well, they're the party of DEI.
Right.
You appoint people based on what their immutable characteristics are.
Yeah.
Whether they're a man or a woman, black, white, Puerto Rican, Mexican, whatever they're, like you don't dig deeper into whether or not they actually have their shit together. You just appoint them because of what they look like. Yeah. Which could be, nothing is more un-American than that.
Yeah, it's absurd. But
we fought a civil war over
they that. They will have their own problems, the Dems, that is, if they choose poorly here. Because, as I've said,
internally, they won't with the rest of the country.
Internally, right.
But internally, as a party,
maybe even with the voters, with the voting contingent. So, what's the, who knows? I don't think it's going to be that people will come out and
she's not
vote
popular.
for Trump if Kamala doesn't run, but I think people may not come out and vote, and that's typically the Democratic Party ace in the hole, is they get the turnout. But
I hope Vice President Word Salad is the candidate. If they're that dumb that they replace,
it's a catch-22.
I mean, it's a catch-22.
Yeah.
If they get rid of her, it pisses off a good chunk of their support. If they don't get rid of her, it pisses off everybody else. So it's
So I wanted to go a little bit deeper about JD Vance, because we talked a little bit yesterday. Steve and I did while we were doing some Lawyer Talk stuff. And so when JD Vance, or if JD Vance becomes vice president, it seems as though we're kind of taking a watchdog, a bulldog out of some good committees, that he's making some really good
I
comments
agree.
about.
I wish he would stay in the
So
Senate.
does it defang him, or does he
Yeah.
remodel, or does he get the opportunity to remodel what the vice presidency role is?
Well, if you remember,
Because it changes what he does.
Well, I think past his prologue. So if you look what Trump did in his first term, he turned Mike Pence loose on a couple of really major projects,
Okay.
like the entire COVID response was under Mike Pence.
Yeah.
So
He just didn't want to touch that either.
Well, I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe
It's what finished his administration. In fact,
Look, if Trump is going to run this like he would run a company,
he's going to delegate.
He's going to have a right-hand
Yeah.
guy who's going to be the bulldog to go out and
it's going to be the
do what needs to
border.
be done.
And that'll be the first
border.
time.
It'll be the border.
That first time that vice presidential role, other than just your example there, though, may actually do something.
Yeah, have actually a real job.
You see this person more than 3 times in a 4-year period.
And who's the president? Who's the typical advisor? The chief of staff or whatever? Like, I think Vance will play that role. Vance will be sort of his guy. Because, look, say what you want about JD Vance, and I can disagree with him a little bit economically. To me, he's more of a old school Democrat on economic policy.
And his book reflects that. If you read Hillbilly Elegy,
so
he believes in government programs to solve social ills.
Yeah,
and he says flat out in his book that the welfare amount to sustain poor families ought to be much larger.
Yeah,
so he's very clear about.
And those are the kind of debates that we used to have, and now we're having debates with the Democrats about, like, are we going to let our children in schools dress up like women and not tell their parents? Right. So, I think if the Democratic Party would just wake up to that, they would win. They would win. It's so stupid.
Well, it would be a much better conversation. Let's put it that way to maybe move something. But not to say that's
it's not economic and sort of big picture governmental issues anymore. It's these social culture issues.
That's right.
Correct.
That they have pushed to the forefront of their
without
agenda,
downplaying or upplaying that cultural problem or
whatever your
that's not what government should be.
It's not what government should be.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's a really good. We've stumbled onto a really interesting point here, because our country has never been that. At least it was founded on the opposite of that. We want freedom to choose what we believe in, to choose what we do, whether it's religion, whether it's anti-religion, whether it's,
as the Isley brothers say, it's your thing.
Do
what you want to do,
and I
can't tell you what to do.
And it seems like if the Democratic Party is sort of losing the middle as a result of this. They've taken this to such extremes that it's not just that you should have a right to do these things. It's like everybody else has to believe them too.
Right.
And that's a very radical agenda.
Well, did you see the Teamsters union president address the RNC?
For the first time in how long? I mean, look, Jackie Presser, I remember standing with Reagan. That was back in the 80s. Was it Jackie Presser of the Teamsters?
And they endorsed.
And it's been the Dems ever since.
Yeah. And they endorsed Reagan, and, which was very unusual. And, I think under Trump, he is actually trying to turn the Republican Party into a blue collar, lunch pail workers type of party. I mean, he
was the traditional Democrat role, right?
Exactly. He's trying to take that whole segment away from them.
Well, he's done it.
And that's what JD's picked, even though I wish he would stay in the Senate, just because
for various reasons. I think JD Vance was well served in the Senate.
Yes,
and
he was.
If we're going to try to insulate and ensure a victory in the presidency, a guy like Youngkin out of Virginia would have been a really good pick.
Yeah, would have been. But his story and his relatability to people, and we saw this with the East Palestine train wreck. He was out there all the time, straddling the creek where the poisonous chemicals were going through, and he's talking to average normal people that their home values had crashed. There's no jobs in the local hotels or restaurants because nobody wants to come there for any reason.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he will appeal to those blue collar voters that they need that Trump needs in Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin.
Yeah, but he already has those. This is
I'm not
why,
sure. Well,
maybe
he
not
needs to
Wisconsin.
seal the deal, man.
Maybe.
Yeah, that's
maybe.
good. That was one
And
of
I think that's the pick.
he's
was
already
all
got
about
Ohio
that.
wrapped. That's the thing.
Yeah, he's got Ohio.
He's got Ohio, and
but PA.
I think anybody who's going to vote for Trump in
That's up in
Michigan
the
that's
air.
going to be influenced by Vance is already voting for Trump in Michigan. Anybody who's going to vote for Trump in Pennsylvania who's going to be influenced by Vance is already voting for Trump. Now, so the question then is, what does Vance bring as far as the middle of the road? And he may bring something. He may.
right.
I'm not discounting that.
Yeah, he's young. He's attractive. He has a young wife.
Well-spoken.
Well, the
all
young
that.
piece of it probably, I mean,
It
you're hearing
helps.
39.
And he's not Kamala Harris.
No.
Because
If
everybody,
that's doing the comparison, no, he's not.
There is a logical viewpoint on this, and it's like if you're looking at the presidential candidacy on both sides, it's not out of the realm of possibility that you end up with a 1-year death out of either. I mean, they're both getting some years behind
You
him.
may end
and
up with
Biden
a president.
particularly.
You may end up with a President Vance. That's very
And you may,
true.
And if you have a vice president taking over, do you want Kamala Harris?
God, no.
And but that's with every election president and vice president option, though. If you think about it, any president can die in office.
Except she was picked
You know?
for DEI reasons, not for competency.
Well, no,
she's incompetent.
Well, what Brett's saying,
she says this word salad shit like
it's the same. Unburdened by the past, blah blah blah.
What can be unburdened by what has been?
Well, she's just trying
It's
to
like
be
pass the reefer, lady. What are you talking about?
She's just trying to be too intellectual.
She's unintellectual.
Anybody who tries to be intellectual is by definition not intellectual.
She is not intellectual. She's dumb.
But well, look, I can't say she's dumb, but she's certainly not capable. She's certainly not capable of commandeering any respect.
Yeah.
But I think, Brett, what you're saying is any time that we have a presidential team, you could always end up with the vice president. You're always thinking about it. But this time, they're both older than they've ever been. Yep. And you think, it's just hard not to think, boy, you could die. And with Trump, somebody could shoot him.
Yeah.
And it's not out of the realm of possibility. In fact, I think it's been proven this last week that it's very likely that somebody will take another shot at Trump. And so who are you going to end up with? And I think the country, like Vance is sort of a middle of the road guy in a lot of ways.
Yes, he is.
Economically anyway.
Yeah.
On the social issues, he's clearly not.
No.
And, on the Dems are calling that radical, but just 5 minutes ago, that was normal.
Yes.
So,
right.
Watching JD Vance's speech and listening to that, it was sort of like listening to Kennedy. It's like
or Bob Dole.
Or
JD Vance is just a normal person, right?
Yeah.
Which today is extraordinary. If you're normal, that is like
I'm in on his viewpoints. It's sort of like the government can fix things, and we're going to do this. And
Bob Dole with the ADA.
Yeah,
right?
Bob Dole, right?
You're right. Big government can fix all these micro things, and JD sort of thinks like that.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
But I also think JD has the ability to make decisions. So look, one of the things of any leader that you have to be able to do is make a freaking decision.
Right.
You have to act.
Yeah.
You have to do something affirmative. And that is running a business, running a household, running your own personal life, and certainly running a big company or a government.
And it's never perfect.
You can't fix indecisiveness. You cannot fix indecisiveness. So if you make a decision and it's wrong, at least that decision was wrong and you can go a different direction. But if you do nothing, you're never testing the waters. You don't know if it's cold or hot. And a buddy of mine who runs big companies said this one time. He goes, I can fix a wrong decision, but I can't fix nothing.
Yeah.
And look, that it's overstated, but I think Vance is a guy who can think through decisions and make decisive decisions about what he wants to do. And he's got the bandwidth upstairs in the form of IQ and analytical ability to do it.
And you're thinking Trump will allow him to do, will want him to do that.
I think Trump will want him to do that. I think Trump will want his insight into things. And if Trump is the kind of leader that the private sector has, is like the ultimate call is on Trump. But when I when I had lots of people working upstairs, I would sit down with the closest people to me in my organization. And by lots, I mean like 6 or 7.
Yeah.
And I would get everybody's input. And then there was always like one person like, what do you really think, man? Like, what do you think? What would you do?
How'd you read the room? Yeah, exactly.
What would you do?
Exactly.
Because here's what I'm thinking. What do you think? And I didn't always go with what that person thought, but it was important to me to know it.
Yeah.
And you need that kind of person in any hierarchical structure.
And I don't think Pence was that man. I don't think he turned into that man.
I don't think Trump trusted him as that man.
Yeah.
Now, whether Pence was capable of that, it wasn't apparent. Yeah. But I also don't think Trump gave him enough credit and respect to do that. I think Pence was a guy See, remember in 16, it was still uncertain whether Trump had the religious vote, the Christian vote, and Pence brought that.
Yes.
Pence was a strategic pick for that, and so he had other motives or other benefits. So I think JD is that guy. And remember, Trump went through, how many people did he go through in his cabinet initially? He was firing left and right.
Well,
yes,
the biggest mistake
probably
he
historical
ever made was
in a
not
year.
firing them.
Well, not getting rid of the deep state guys, not getting rid of Fauci, and not getting rid of
Jeff Sessions.
And
well, I mean, 1 month into his presidency, right? They spring the Russia hoax on.
Should have booted that guy day one, and that's what anybody would have done.
It's just, Jeff, bye. You're out of here.
Right, you're
partisan,
partisan,
and then there's
go.
no Robert Mueller investigation outside of the Justice Department.
People don't give Trump credit enough for that lack of decision. It's like it shows that I remember saying it down here at the table. It shows he wasn't scared of that. He thought it was BS from the beginning because it was.
But it was a 3-year drag on the president.
And I don't think Trump understood the scope of the bulwark that was up against him.
That's right.
I don't think he understood how much.
No question.
Like he thought he was going to slip in and eventually everybody would sort of get along like they always have and the government work. I think he underestimated significantly how much those people wanted to take him out.
Or another way of saying it, the depth of the swamp.
The depth of the swamp.
It was way deeper.
Well, it's not just the swamp. It was people wanted him out.
Yeah, well,
and they were willing.
But he did lay the gauntlet. He was an asshole. I mean, he played it out. I guess I'm surprised he would think that it would change things once he steps into the Oval Office and takes charge.
So, Brad, I would ask you to name all the non-asshole presidents.
Oh my God, yeah, no, yeah, exactly.
So I don't know.
He was just always in your face.
What you're saying is Trump's demeanor was different than any other president that we've had.
That is not why they wanted him out. That's the suburban wine moms don't vote for him for that reason.
No. I understand, but Trump did not.
But Hillary didn't sick the Steele report on Trump because he was an asshole.
Here's where that matters.
She did it to take him out.
Here's where that matters. It got legs because of that. So look, the people that wanted to take him out had a reason to want to take him out on a different one.
Comey.
A totally different one.
Comey, who is an asshole himself.
Because Trump was a different threat. But they got public support for it because Trump's demeanor in the face of that was not what people were used to in the White House.
True.
I think it
there would have been more public backlash for it if Trump were
all public backlash.
What I'm saying is the public support for that gave it fuel.
Yes. Okay. The motivations of the swamp creatures like
was
Comey
different. It was not because Trump's an asshole. It was because Trump was a threat.
Because they're all assholes.
Right. They all are. Right.
I mean,
But Trump wasn't going to kowtow to it. And Trump had this. Trump was not going to back down to that kind of stuff.
It was policy.
And in fact, Trump ran on the platform that he was going to get rid of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But the public perception of Trump, I think, enabled the opposition,
coupled with the media, rah-rah,
and it made it really easy to say Trump's an asshole. This guy's crazy. Let's get rid of him.
Well, every night you had Rachel the Mad Cow on MSNBC and CNN and all those kinds of people. Every night for 3 years, Trump absolutely is in Putin's pocket. Trump is Putin's puppet.
Everybody.
Blah, blah, blah. That's all you heard for 3 years. So that kind of PSYOPs program definitely
worked because, and then Trump is using language and behaving in a way that people aren't used to. So the people in the middle are going to be like, man, maybe there is something there.
Yeah, exactly.
And the daily tweets.
The daily tweets were over the top. Now what's interesting is, and this is a good segue, the RNC, the convention, and Trump's recent, I think since his conviction, or maybe since his trial started, has changed. It's almost like he's learned. And I heard one commentator say he's sort of like the velociraptor in Jurassic Park, like he learned how to turn a doorknob. Like he's learned. He's backed off. He is not so abrasive anymore. He is not coming out like he did. It's almost like before it was all sheets to the wind. And
he gave a 90-minute speech last night and used the word Biden, the name Biden, one time.
Yeah. And look, his speech was rather boring at times, I think, but it was a little long.
And you wonder, as you're
he spent a half an hour of it talking about the assassination.
Yeah,
right. I was going to say,
which I think was too much.
As noted seconds. by your honorary bandage, but
I'm wearing this as simpatico.
Yeah, how does not being shot at not affect you?
Of course,
change.
Yeah,
I'm not saying it has, but it's like,
I think it has. I think
how can it not? Think about how close you are not to being
here. Did
you
guys see that animation? Have you guys seen this? So somebody did like an animation. I've dealt with this crap in legal cases where from above there's a computer generated image of a head, and they took Trump's head movements and they added in bullet trajectories, and it's like his head goes like this and the bullet whizzes by, and if his head didn't go like that, it was going to go right through here.
Okay.
He'd have been dead.
Yes.
It is uncanny. There were 2 or 3 shots right there, and at least 2 of them would have killed him. Yeah, and it's like, holy crap. And I agree with you, Brett. How does that not change somebody?
Well, he spent a third of his speech demonstrating it did affect him.
It did, right?
Yeah, but I'm just saying,
you're right. Yeah. So look, if I'm Trump's advisor,
that's not even a question. It did affect him.
I would say 5 minutes on that.
Yeah.
5 minutes on that's all you need. Everybody knows what happened there. 5 minutes. And the 5 minutes needs to be spent on how that has impacted you. Not what happened, because everybody has seen that.
Yeah.
But how has that impacted you?
Well, he wanted to give tribute to the police chief or the fire chief.
Well, you can do that in 5 minutes. You can easily do that in 5 minutes. Yeah. And I'm not saying, look, Trump is Trump. He's going to do what he wants, and he's been successful doing it. He doesn't have to listen to us, but it was a long time. But I think the point I'm making here, the point I am making here is exactly what I think, Brett, you just said, is that is a reflection of how much that impacted him. When things impact you that much, you talk about them. And
sure.
Trump went in and talked about himself like that.
And it's still fresh within a week. Fresh. Oh my God.
And I think it's also, I hope, at least outwardly, it has deflated some of the dangerous rhetoric that's been flying around. People these are lies. Like, Trump's not Hitler. Trump is not going to destroy the country and turn it into an authoritarian state.
No.
None of that's going to happen.
No.
And people know that, generally speaking.
None of it did happen. He held office for 4 years.
And it didn't happen.
And he frickin' left on January 20th.
So, look,
he did not stay in as a dictator. He didn't call in SEAL Team 6 and say, line up the artillery to keep Biden out of the White House.
It's rhetoric.
All crap.
It is political rhetoric, and it's bullshit.
It's total bullshit.
And I think the Republicans do this too. We've gotten to this point where people use hyperbole and exaggeration and make caricatures of the other side, and more so against Trump, because Trump has put himself there and he takes it.
Well, I don't know if he put himself there when President Biden said Trump needs to be in the bullseye. He said that 1 week before the assassination.
What I mean is that Trump is an easy target for that because of the
So when Sarah Palin said the crosshairs are on some issue or something, right?
She got absolutely.
They went all in on Sarah Palin.
When Trump used the word bloodbath, they misinterpreted that, and they've twisted and tortured everything he has said to make him a villain.
The jobs of the UAW union members will be a bloodbath. Their jobs, because that's
he was saying if Biden stays in office,
the automobile
economic structure will be. This is going to be a bloodbath. People are going to lose their jobs. It's going to be a mess. That was the context where he used that. And then of course they clip that out and say a bloodbath means he's going to go kill people. But anyway,
like Charlottesville
was completely. CNN's even retracted.
There are good and so did Lester Holt in this interview with Biden challenge. Biden when he said
they're starting to push him a little bit.
He did not call those lies when Biden said even a week ago that when he came into office, inflation was 9%. No, it wasn't. It was 1 point something.
Right.
Number two, Biden repeated the discredited thing that Trump said there's good sides on both sides of the riot.
Keeps saying that.
He did not talk about the rioters. In fact,
right.
He talked about how the Klan was.
He even said, I'm not talking about the white supremacists.
That they're nasty and they need to be prosecuted. He said all that. He said good people on both sides of whether or not a statue should come down.
There were arguments on both sides of that debate.
So Lester Holt did not call those lies when he did the interview with Biden. Yet last night, Samantha Guthrie and Major Garrett both in their pre and post Trump speech commentary decided to, I don't know, play the DNC. And they said Trump is going to roll out, and did roll out, what they called lies about January 6th, lies about election fraud,
well, all this
crap, and lies about Charlottesville.
That's all they have.
And I'm like, who are you, media people, to adjudge that those are lies or not lies? Just give us the facts. We'll decide if he lied or not.
They're partisan. They've exposed themselves as partisan from day one.
And so is it a surprise that this Crooks guy took a pop at Trump after 3 years or 4 years, 8 years, really, of telling people he's Hitler?
Of course not. What I'm saying is, hopefully, people have learned their lessons. Now, you're saying probably, it doesn't sound like it.
No,
but at least
he's
outwardly,
still Hitler.
Outwardly, and even Biden pushed back on that. Wow, it's true. I said these things about him he's going to be this authoritarian because it's true. And it's like, you know what?
Wow. Yeah, so backing off of the rhetoric lasted 24 hours, and the White House is right back to it. KJP
I don't think
they're right back into it.
I think the perception
He's a
of
threat to democracy.
It's sort of like we have pulled back the curtain on the wizard.
Yeah.
And I think the public is keen to this now.
Yeah, they are.
Like somebody takes a shot at Trump, and I know Kyle Gass. I don't know if you guys know Tenacious D, which is Jack Black's band with Kyle Gass.
Yeah,
and
Nacho Libre, favorite movie.
Yeah, one of his band members.
Kyle Gass, the right hand guy, says for his birthday he wanted don't miss Trump next time. God. And that
shit's all over the internet.
There's been cancel culture going a backlash against them. Jack Black, he canceled himself. But so, there's still those people that think that and are saying that. But I think in your gut, you sort of think, holy crap.
They're the extremists. People who say
it's exposing people like that as extreme.
That's
because
right.
it is extreme.
It is extreme.
And in their mind, they think that they're going to get applauded for saying it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they used to.
Up until this
now
week.
Now it's happened. Right. Now it's real.
Now it's real. Like, do you really play that out that he is dead?
Yeah.
Play that out.
Well, not just dead, like head vaporized on national TV.
Exactly.
Right. Like anybody who's seen guns, like I see them in my practice. You see that crap.
Absolutely.
It's viciously gory.
Absolutely.
It's brutal.
Right.
It's brutal.
Because we would have seen
Zapruder
that
film doesn't do it justice because this technology
over
wasn't
and over again.
This bullshit has been going on for a long time. I don't know if you guys remember when Shrub, or Bush number 2, George W., was president. When he was president on Broadway, off Broadway in New York City, there was a play about assassinating Bush. Right? How can you do off Broadway, right, a show about killing the president who's in office at that time? And then Madonna, when I went to Trump's swearing in 4 years ago, and Madonna appeared when all the pink ladies with their stupid little pink hats and all that. So we're mixing it up with those people, and I'm opening the door, and I'm getting frowned at because I'm being a gentleman and opening the door for these ladies. And the culture there was so anti-male. It was so anti-traditional America. Madonna takes the stage and says, I dream about blowing up the White House.
Mm-hmm. Well, and who was the comedian, the gal who said
the severed head?
The severed head,
right?
What was her
name?
Kathy Griffin.
Griffin,
yes,
right?
Yes.
Yeah.
All of this stuff, all this violence.
And look, I'll tell you, upstairs in my law practice, going back, I don't think it was Clinton. It might have been an Obama. I don't remember what it was. And one of the presidents back in my career, somebody made a comment like that and was prosecuted.
Yeah.
And I represented him. And he's like, I wasn't going to do anything.
Yeah, Madonna got a visit from the Secret Service.
You don't do that crap.
She said
look what happened with down in was it Georgia? Woman part of the DNC at that local level made a comment on social media, the same thing. She's investigated.
Yeah.
And she was shocked that she got investigated. It's like, lady,
are you kidding?
You're threatening the president or somebody who's trying to be
president. And again, this is not for me a party thing. It's like if they took a shot at Biden, I would be just
same
as pissed.
Thing, right? Yeah.
You don't do that crap,
Brett. To support your point on this show, I made a very strong case. This was like a year ago, why RFK needed to have Secret Service protection, and Biden denied it.
They deny it. Yeah.
Now after
remarkable.
The shooting, now he's got it.
Giving him.
Now he's got it.
It is
how does Biden deny? Is it on?
He runs the Secret Service, dude.
Yeah,
It's okay, I guess
the deep state. I mean,
I
it
didn't
is
know
the
that.
deep state.
Okay.
It's an executive. It's on the executive side.
Okay.
And there was legislation proposed.
So RFK's dad and uncle were assassinated, right? And you can see a nut out there who just wants to
be part of the legacy.
So look,
famous.
I do. Here's a little bit of a legal breakdown. I do a lot of criminal defense work, and in that I do a lot of appellate work. And I'm working on a case right now where on appeal there's a chance to do DNA testing. All right, and it's not the kind of DNA testing that would be definitive, for sure. But say the prosecutor argued in their case at trial there was so much. The DNA was important for XYZ reason. And it turns out the DNA doesn't really quite support that, but there's additional testing you could do to verify the prosecutor's theory at trial. So I go to the prosecutor and I say, will you agree to have your lab, the government lab, swab this part of the evidence and test for DNA? No. You have to ask why the F not. And when you're Biden and you're not going to give Kennedy
protection,
Secret Service protection, you have to ask why the F not?
Right.
Why not?
Right.
Other than to downplay the legitimacy that you're actually a candidate?
Yeah.
Maybe some of it?
You expose questions like that. Yeah, I'm not saying that's why, but you have you can put that back on the person making that decision and say, what is your reasoning for this? Because if it's money, you're printing freaking money left and right.
The money to spend on it.
We're going on $40 trillion in national debt.
And this is an expense that I think almost everybody in the country would be cool with.
You can do it.
I would not be cool with funding DEI nonsense, but I am cool with this, even if it's the other party's candidate. It's like,
of course,
why in the F
because
do you not want?
If you don't, it also has a chilling effect.
Right.
That third party cannot exist because I don't get protection. You couldn't run, I couldn't run, you couldn't run because knowing, okay.
Well, at the time he was running for the Democratic nomination.
In my DNA case, the answer to that question is because you're afraid of the outcome and you might be wrong, but your job is to get it right no matter if you prove yourself formally wrong. Your job is to do justice, Mr. Prosecutor. So get the damn answer. And if you don't like the result, then we'll talk about it. Or if it's inconclusive, we'll talk about it. But at least we'll know and nobody can ask any more questions. In this situation with Biden and the Secret Service, it stinks of all the questions that, Brett, you're asking. It's sort of like, is this for political power? Why in the F do you think that RFK, whose father or whose uncle and father were both assassinated, shouldn't have Secret Service protection?
I mean,
he's
it's outrageous.
A legitimate candidate for president.
It's outrageous.
Like he's got legs. I mean, it's a legitimate presidential candidacy, but he is gutting the Democratic vote, or at least that's the theory. He's taking votes that will otherwise go to Biden, and or go to nobody.
Right. So and, I'll show him. I'll show him.
It's not even that.
I mean,
it's like
ridiculous.
we've got to make sure we've got it. Like I think it's more subtle. I think Brett, you're right. Is that it sort of downplays the legitimacy? Like he's not even.
He's not
for
real.
For a second. For Social Security, or I keep saying for Secret Service protection.
Once I okay it, he'll probably pull out. I mean, just what a waste of time or something.
Yeah, right.
But you're right. Multiple reasons.
Significant.
Right.
I mean, what are the layers on this decision?
Like, why not?
Why not?
Why wouldn't you give a guy protection?
We've spent more stupid money on more things than
and
that.
At the same time, you're calling him dangerous. He's got dangerous ideas, and we don't agree. And he's terrible for the party.
Everybody's dangerous to Joe Biden if they're not Joe Biden. I mean,
it's bigger than that. Everybody's dangerous to the Democratic Party if they disagree.
That's right.
Everybody who disagrees with the Democratic Party right now is anti-democracy.
A threat to democracy.
It's an overstatement.
And look at all the threats to democracy that DNC has done. It's a laundry list of things they've done to interfere with this election, trying to take Trump off of ballots, dragging him through all these court cases that are getting dismissed seriatim.
And didn't they look in their own party? What was the primary situation this year?
Yeah.
Biden. I mean, they sort of just shut that down.
That's right. Rubber stamped it.
I mean, I know there was some sort of primaries around, but it wasn't like the full-blown.
And now look at the mess they're in because they didn't go through a primary. Yeah. Now they have a real problem.
They rigged it for Hillary. They rigged it for Biden both against Sanders.
And now they're looking for a candidate and they're like, well, gee whiz, guys, you did this to yourselves.
Right.
Now you're going to disenfranchise all those Democratic primary voters. Like here in Ohio, they all voted for Biden. Now you're going to disenfranchise them by going into a smoke-filled room and saying, hey, we got to get rid of
Let's pick the best guy to beat Trump.
That's right.
Yeah.
Let's bring in Gavin or Kamala.
Well, and I brought up this earlier this year in regards to the length of the primary season, and you brought up a good point that now comes back that, well, allow it to be long. Because if it's only 35 to 40 days, or 35, or I should say 45 to 60 days long, whatever it might be, we never had that debate.
Right.
We never saw him look pretty bad.
Right. They protected Biden.
Yeah. So
let's talk a little bit.
So allowing it to be long allows these problems to arise, that it's not the automatic choice that, some people go off because they can't make it through the whole primary season, but it did allow. So you kind of changed my mind about this length of primary.
And then
it kind of allows these problems to arise.
And then on the flip side of the election season, because we don't have an election day now, we've got people voting in September. What that allows for is the nightmare scenario that maybe Biden resigns after people start voting
for him.
Yeah.
Right? That's crazy.
Or you could vote.
If we need to have an election day.
Yeah, or Trump gets convicted on a higher level, which isn't going to happen. But, as an extreme example, that you voted for Trump and you voted for somebody that's in jail.
Right.
And again, that's an extreme.
But
it's
you're right.
But
you're
it's
right.
the same
Things
scenario.
change at the end. I mean, it's like.
Of course.
Yeah.
And you're going to have people voting for somebody who possibly could be dead by election day.
Well,
I mean, it's just insane.
Yeah. This is what happens when you lie and lie to cover up the lies and lie to cover up the cover-up lies.
Right.
They were lying about Biden's well-being. All right.
Right.
And it's sad.
Right.
The man clearly has something wrong. I saw some doc say he has probably Parkinson's, and that comes with mental decline as well. Right. So they lied. They covered that up.
That's right.
And now they've gotten to the point where they can't cover it up anymore, but they've got to cover up the lies they told to cover up the cover-up lies.
They're hoist on their own petard.
So they created a sort of a sham primary.
Right.
They didn't run anybody against them. They wouldn't really let anybody emerge and do anything.
No.
And they sort of downplayed all of that. And now they got to face the music. I mean, they've made this bed and they're all getting exposed. If I'm a Democrat and I support the agenda of the Democratic Party, I'd be pissed the F off.
Totally.
I would be pissed. If my party did this, I would be effing pissed.
Right.
I'd be like, wait a minute. What is the democratic process here? Aren't we supposed to choose the candidates? And that's what the primary is all about? And you've hidden this from us. Right. And now you stick this old bird up on stage and he can't even put two words together. And you've been hiding this from us. And the media has been saying cheap fake, cheap fake, cheap fake. Right. It's like all the lies got exposed because damn well the media knew and they were just calling it a cheap fake. Or if they didn't know, then they're going to act like they were deceived. But it's like these were lies. They were lies.
That's right.
So if the Democratic Party's drinking the Kool-Aid and going, okay, we got to do Joe. This is it. We got to get him in the office. But we also know
he has a bad debate.
Yeah, right.
And then they flip.
No, they also know
what I'm saying is that he does. So let's say Joe wins. What's the Democratic? Is there a game? Is there a plan B, plan C, plan D? Because that dude ain't gonna make it in 4 years.
He's not going to make it.
So what's the next step for those guys?
Right.
Okay, we now own the office again for another 4.
They're in a pickle.
What do we?
And they don't like Kamala. She's not popular with Democrats.
Just to win the office, they're gonna put this old guy up and go.
So you wonder the motive. It's like, why are you doing this? Why are you putting a guy
just to win the office? What's your plan B, plan C after he wins?
If I were defending Joe Biden on a crime, the first thing I would do is file a motion for a competency evaluation because that man is not competent to stand trial.
Essentially what Robert Hur said.
Yes. So he's not competent to stand trial. And if you're the Democratic elites or whoever, the making these decisions, the central committee, and you're saying we don't care, we're going to hide this and put this guy up in charge of the free world. It's like, you know what? Shame on you people. Shame on you people, because that's not good for the country. I don't care what the agenda is. It's not good for the world.
And what do we do as a country if he wins and the first year we see decline? I don't even know what's the process.
He will step down almost day one because then they will have regained their power.
That could be planned.
And Kamala Harris will be president.
It seems as though the ego's
God.
But it seems like he's got the ego that he thinks he's going to do it though, and he's going to do the 4 years.
Who knows?
It's so coming off as such. Well, I've got to finish the job.
You're right.
He's mentally addled.
But I'm not sure I don't even think he knows what day it is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's getting really scary. Like the drugs aren't working anymore. It's like, I don't think he knows. I mean, look, I've dealt with anybody who's been around at our age. You've encountered a family member, a friend's family member who's got senility or decline in mental capacity. And this is obvious. It is obvious to anybody.
Yeah.
Even in the last 2 years, like you look at speeches 2 or 3 years ago.
When he walked off stage off that debate.
Oh, and then you had Jill saying, "You answered all the questions,
It
Joe."
Was so
oh
bad.
My God!
It's like,
what was she thinking?
You
what was
answered
she,
all? And he's like,
what was she thinking with that?
And it's like, I'm not making fun of that. I am cringing at that.
Yes,
it was embarrassing.
Right.
It was hard to watch.
Yep.
It was awful.
Yeah.
On every level.
Yeah.
And if you're the Democrats, and I would say the same thing about the Republicans if they were doing this nonsense.
If Trump did the exact same thing, I'd say the same thing. Exactly.
This man is not capable of running the country, and you are acting like he is. Shame on you, MFers. You are
putting all of us
at risk. Because if you don't think Putin, China, and the rest of the world, the evil parts of the world, aren't going to take advantage of this, you are sorely mistaken.
Well, the FDR 25th Amendment.
Well, that'll come into play for sure. If he's elected, they'll get rid of him and replace him.
Absolutely. I mean, they should. There's a pretty strong argument if they feel that way. And you hear Schumer, Pelosi on down the list.
But if that's the plan, why are you running him?
They should take him out now.
If that's the plan, why are you running him?
Or are they setting themselves up that they made their voices known before he is elected?
Told you so. Right. So
okay, now
everybody's running for cover.
Maybe.
You might be right. Everybody's running for cover on this. And if if the coup, so to speak, doesn't work and Biden doesn't step down and they replace him with somebody, they're in a pickle. Yeah. I mean, they're in a pickle, and worse yet, we are all in a pickle. And after that debate, a lot of the commentators are out there saying this is a scary time for the country because people know that we have at best a puppet, at worst somebody behind the scenes calling the shots that's not on our side. It's like this is a dangerous time. This kind of weakness.
And to your point, Steve, there are very rational Democrats like David Axelrod, Van Jones, people who are balanced.
Mm-hmm.
And they're Democrats, and they have been saying exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, this is dangerous.
This is dangerous right now, that he should be replaced, even as president, perhaps now.
Right now. I don't care about everything else.
We got another 6 months or so to go in his presidency.
At least put somebody in the White House who has the competency to run it.
To at least be awake.
Yeah.
After 8 o'clock at night and, before, after 4 in the afternoon, and 8 o'clock in the morning. Even Kamala, as daffy as she is, at least she would be awake.
It's like a client making a bad statement to the police and they just keep digging. Every time Joe goes out and says, I'm going to prove that I'm competent, more of it comes out. And it's like, oh my gosh.
Right. And he's super angry at anybody questioning.
Of course. Right. Because that's anybody who's dealt with that from an elderly person, that's part of it.
Yeah.
It's frustration.
He's also not used to being pushed back, though, challenged to either, because
by his team,
by his own team.
Oh yeah, they fluffed him up.
Yeah,
they fluffed him up. So when Lester Holt asked him 1 or 2 tough questions, the guy loses his mind because he's like, "Wait a minute!"
And he's always been that way.
Yeah,
he's always been that way.
He's always been that way.
You see these old clips of him arguing with his own people.
Right.
He's a dick.
Well, Joe Biden. So Brett used the word asshole. Joe Biden's been an asshole his entire career.
Yeah.
He oversaw the borking of Robert Bork as committee chairman. He oversaw the Clarence Thomas hearings.
Forget about those things, Norm. It's the clips where he's talking to the auto workers up in Detroit. It's the clips where he's talking to the guy down in Texas.
Right.
It's like when he
talks to the media. I was first in my class. I was the top. I got the scholarship.
That has nothing to do with senility. That has everything to do with the guy.
He said all that.
He's just sort of an abrasive dick anyway.
40s. Yeah. No. And when I say that, I truly mean most politicians, quite frankly.
No, you're right.
But
you didn't say anything wrong.
Yeah.
The issue.
No, I get you.
It just is he.
Yeah. Well, hey, dude, I'm a Ted Cruz guy.
Oh, no.
I got this thing on my ear only because now Trump is my choice because that's what I have. We had a very robust,
stable of candidates, but I'm not sure. I've gone. We can just go back and listen to history, and I flip flopped on this a couple times on what I think about Trump and being president again. It's like I feel like he's the right guy for the job right now. I really do. It's like of all the stable of candidates, I think he's the guy.
Right.
And
he's mellowed.
Some of it is he's mellowed. Some of it is getting sort of. He's got slapped a little bit by these lawsuits and the prosecution and then this assassination attempt.
Right.
And I think with JD Vance, who's got a more, JD Vance is sharp. He's capable.
Yeah.
And I think he has the ability, I hope, to keep the ship in the right direction.
I think he will.
Well, and you're looking at a second 4-year term for either guy, and that's a different mindset.
It is.
It is, right? Yeah.
Right.
Because they have nothing to, it's like winning the gold.
That's right.
A second or third time.
Right.
Yeah,
like,
now what?
I'm cruising.
Well, look, in the corporate structure, and maybe this is a back to Vance, in a corporate structure, your goal is always to find your replacement. In the military structure too, there's like you always want to train your replacement, so you've got to continue the legacy, and maybe that's what his mindset is. But anyway, we've been off on that tangent. I know we've got a question from a listener and a viewer that we want to deal with, but you want to deal with some other news first, Norm?
Well, I think it's good just to hit a couple of quick things. Isn't it a little weird that back in 1912, 1 mile, right, from where the convention was, that Teddy Roosevelt was shot while giving a speech, just like Trump was.
And continued?
Was and he continued.
Mm-hmm.
And he's bleeding the whole time. And I think he continued.
Did he have like a cigarette pack or something in his breast pocket that helped buffer the bullet?
But the bullet went in him.
Mm-hmm.
And he continued that speech, I think, for another 45 minutes to an hour, bleeding the entire time, and then went to the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the coincidences here, I mean, we have a terrible history in this country of presidential assassinations. I'm old enough to remember, even as a 4-year-old, JFK being shot, and what a shock that was to my mother and father, and how that went down. Martin Luther King, RFK, Reagan, and, Ohio's own McKinley was assassinated. And, you just say to yourself, we have to be much more careful with our rhetoric in this country, not to tee up crazies. We just need to be, we need to be a little bit more reverential about our disagreements, and be able to say, Steve, you are completely wrong. Let me tell you why. Instead of hurling an epithet at you, that you're nobody, and I hope somebody does something bad to you. What the hell's that about?
We have a sliding scale that exists, I think, in the world. And on the one side of it, so if you picture the curves crossing, on one trajectory you have freedom, and on the other you have risk. And the more freedom, the more risk. And we have a free country. We have a country where people can speak their minds. We have a country where people can walk around the streets without having the Gestapo ask for their papers.
Right.
We have a country where you can carry firearms. We have a country where you can move freely. You can go to different states.
I can leave Columbus.
I can leave the country if I want to. I mean, we have freedom. And with freedom comes risk, because there's always bad actors in humanity. I mean, this is a very biblical ideal, right? There's always humans are inherently flawed.
Right.
And I've always said there's a way to get rid of almost all the crime in our country, except the cost of that is extreme. You have to put jackboots on the ground and arm governmental brown shirts. And then if anybody even jaywalks, you shoot them.
Yeah.
And you'd be like, well, that's crazy. Guess what? It would stop jaywalking.
Yeah.
Now, the problem with that is the people enforcing that are also human actors, and they are subject to the same corruption of the people that would commit the acts. So we have this sliding scale of freedom versus risk. And I think this results in assassinations in our country. It's not a justification of this. It's more of a philosophical discussion. But
right. And we're not calling for limits on speech.
I'm not calling for any of it.
I'm calling for behavioral modification.
So the point you're making,
that's self-control.
Culture.
That's culture.
Yeah. And maybe allowing that disagreement for a moment for you to learn.
Well, that's a great point.
That's right.
Excellent point, because we have squelched contrary views.
That's right.
Because we all have a life lived.
There needs to be.
You've come to this journey today with everything that you believe because something happened in your life.
Yeah.
Me too. And we have to we've lost the respect of that.
And
when you deplatform doctors who want to talk about alternate COVID theories
and make them crazy and say they're crazy. Well, guess what?
Yeah.
We're
finding out they were 100% right.
They were right, but the people on the other side of them got so fired up about those doctors because they were risking the entire population to die of COVID. It was a pandemic of the unmasked, a pandemic of the unvaccinated, the stupids. It's like the deplorables. And I had people who I knew in the legal profession basically calling me stupid, deplorable. It's a pandemic of the uneducated and ignorant. And I called up a couple of people. I'm like, what are you talking about?
So who is taking down speech rights? Who is deplatforming, right? We can't do that.
Well, this is going on right now in our government, right? And there's
and that terrible Supreme Court decision not granting standing. The same day they heard the Volo case,
a different case will come up. So standing's a different. That'll be a different breakdown.
No, but I'm just saying the same day they decided NRA versus Volo, and they said government action in New York State cannot happen against free speech. On the same day, they also heard the case of Marbeth or whatever it was, the case where the Elvis Chan and these guys with the FBI were going out to Silicon Valley, and the AGs of Louisiana and Missouri had all of this information, and that trial judge who wrote the most beautiful opinion about how government cannot outsource censorship that it itself cannot do. It can't tell big tech to censor people and to not. I mean, Alito went nuts in his dissent and said, we clearly one or two of these people had standing, and the court shirked its duty to hear this case.
Yeah, but they also created a roadmap for the next one. That'll come up again, and it'll get fixed.
The guys, I do want to say something about common sense. So did you guys hear in the line last night, and this is great, Trump said their guiding principle for this coming administration, should they win, is common sense.
CommonSenseOhioShow.com.
I mean, he said, let's, we're going to be doing things based on common sense. And I thought that was cool. So you asked about some news. You guys pick up on the Columbus police officers in Milwaukee.
Yeah.
There were 13 bicycle cops from Columbus, Ohio, that were there to take the place of Milwaukee cops.
They didn't have enough.
They didn't have enough. So they're down just like Columbus is down on numbers of police. So 13 of them were in a public park area providing security, I guess a mile or so from, or a couple of miles from the Fiserv Convention Center where the convention was taking place. And there was a homeless man living in a tent city there in Milwaukee approaching, I think he was like 43 or whatever. And he was approaching another man, both of them African-Americans, another man who was 26 years old. And the older man had a knife in both hands and did not obey the police.
Told him to stop, and the guy kept going at it.
Kept approaching.
Tragic shooting.
So the 5 of the 13 Columbus police shot and killed this guy.
Yeah.
And then they tried to render first aid afterwards, but naturally protests the next day. And our frequent guest on the show, Brian Steele, who is the head of the FOP for those Columbus police officers, he said that they will be off duty for at least 60 days while an investigation.
You got to do the investigation, but that one's going to be pretty clear cut.
So Columbus police enforcing the law.
Making news big again.
The other big thing that I think happened I think it happened either 2 days ago or maybe it was yesterday, but as you alluded to, the 8th Circuit put an administrative stay on the Biden student loan program, which was going to eliminate the entire debt for 4.5 million what they call low income former students.
Right. So I mean, look, this is
I don't know about you guys, but like almost every recent graduate is low income.
Yeah. So here's let's do a quick little breakdown on this.
I mean, right?
Good point.
They graduate, they're low income.
This is worthy of a little bit of a breakdown. So what you had is the U.S. Supreme Court is whenever this matriculates up, it ends up getting struck down because they don't have Biden doesn't have the authority to do it. The Congress could, I suppose, but they don't have the votes.
ruled on this last year.
So Biden just changes it up, adds a little bit of nuance to it and tries again, and it was all just this ploy to get votes. So look, and what the court really said here is, what the court really did was it refused to or put a stay on it.
Yeah, that's right.
Now, what's a stay? It means the other side the person bringing the action, declaring what Biden tried to do as unconstitutional, said, look, if we don't stop this while the courts figure it out, it's going to cause irreparable harm.
Yeah.
And the irreparable harm here is economic, because it would allocate millions of government dollars,
billions,
that you can't get back.
Yeah.
So the courts have said, look, whether this is constitutional or not, there's enough of an argument here that we're not going to let you go forward with this until the big court figures it out. So that's where we are. It's not that the Eighth Circuit struck down the action of Biden. It is that they said there's enough of a challenge here that we're not going to let the action go forward until
we consider the merit,
until the legal issues are
put the
figured
brakes
out.
on it for now.
Yeah.
But that said, one of the primary considerations in making that determination is what are the merits of the allegations. So if the challenge to Biden's action didn't have any merits, they wouldn't have stopped it.
They wouldn't have stopped it.
So anyway, that's just a quick legal breakdown.
But the other guest that we've had in here wrote an amicus brief, the Buckeye Institute. So they are all over the place. This head of litigation for the Buckeye Institute, that was our guest, David Tryon. They entered again in this appeal for that stay, which was granted.
Yep.
So pretty cool stuff that, our show is kind of, we're connecting some of the dots between some of the big players here in the news recently.
Yep.
Pretty neat.
So look, here's what we're going to do. We've got a question from a viewer.
Yep.
And we get these periodically, and we kick them around from time to time. So I think what we're going to do today is we're going to wrap up this show. We're going to do a special episode to address that question and release that separately. Yeah. I think that's an easier way to do it, because I don't want to take up too much time here. It's the question is a very interesting one that we can't just. It's going to take some discussion. So I think that's worthy of a separate segment that will drop as a special Common Sense Ohio episode. So what we're going to do now is we're going to sign off. Now, before I do, of course, let me remind you that we are sponsored by Harper Plus Accounting, and our accountant could be yours. All our shows can be found at commonsenseohioshow.com, where you can where you can share, where you can check us out on Facebook. If you don't know how to get to Facebook, we can do it right there at that website. If you don't know how to get to all the other social media, as I am rather ignorant about, you can do it right there on the website, commonsenseohioshow.com. And we just encourage everybody to like and share. It's not like we're out advertising, folks. It's not like we're out sending this through mainstream media. We're a grassroots type of show, and we try to be honest about our opinions. And when our opinions change, I try to change mine with common sense. And we are just encouraging everybody else to do the same. We hope that you feel the same way about it each and every week as we come at you right from the middle. We are commonsenseohioshow.com.